I love this show. Thank you all so much for your patience with us today and hanging in there with us today. Absolutely. One of my favorite aldermen is about to come up.
Oh, returning guest, I will say that. She loved us so much that she decided to come back for another episode.
She's a friend of the show.
I know, we always appreciate that, and it's very insightful. And we can't wait to ask her some great questions.
All right. Let's get after it.
Yep, let's bring on Alderwoman of the First Ward, Clare Kelly.
All right. Right, Alderperson Clare. So this, I know they changed the boundary lines recently. So is this still your ward?
Yeah,
It's still your ward.
Yeah, thank you for hosting this event. Beautiful ward, wonderful.
Yes. In the non-Fountain Square.
It's a fountain spirit. That's the way I like it. Fountain spirit.
And we should mention, can you all hear me? We should mention, Claire was one of those residents at the time, before she became an alderman, who was trying to tell them about the fountain. You were one of those people like, the fountain's not going to work. And they didn't listen. Like, it was several residents, and you tried to warn them.
Sure, right. Well, hopefully this will have a fountain soon.
Hopefully, yes.
Reflecting, I know you'd asked me to think a little bit about maybe some of the 3 top areas that I'd like to see maybe improve for the city. And I think, I was thinking about the myriad issues that we sort of face, including downtown, and Andy's doing a great job addressing many of those issues, with empty office spaces, storefronts, the need to improve our facilities and our parks. But I'd kind of like to approach it from a higher perspective, and really look at some of the areas that I feel that we can really improve on that will have an impact on the quality of living for Evanstonians. And I think, I try to think of what are those overarching areas. And it really kind of boiled down to 3 areas that I think if we really can strengthen these areas, this will have an impact on everything, including affordability. And the number 1 issue, I think, is transparency. And I mean transparency in a real way, transparency where our city government discloses details, where it adheres to process, right? Where it's open and willing to engage with residents and communicate with them and really bring them to the table. That is just, I can't emphasize how important that is in terms of delivering the product, delivering a higher quality of living in Evanston. So that's the first area, and I can go on and on about that and why that's so impactful, transparency in government. The next area is affordability and our budget, and really doing a better job of ensuring that we are spending in accordance with our residents' needs and interests. I think we can do a better job in that area, and I think in large part, they're all really tied together. So transparency, affordability in our budget process, and then the third area is really looking at our overall culture at City Hall. So all 3 of these areas are really intrinsically linked, and I think we really need to look at how we, for example, vet projects, how we address failed projects, again with disclosure of details. That's how we move forward. That's how we ensure that we don't make mistakes in the future. So that would be sort of the top areas that I'm looking at really strengthening our city, the transparency and affordability in our budget process, as well as a culture in Evanston that, both for our employees and for our residents, a culture that doesn't put up barriers to engagement, that doesn't put up barriers for our employees or for our residents to step forward, where we express gratitude to our residents for being involved, where we express gratitude to our board, parks, our commission members, our volunteers. I see at least a couple out here. Thank you for your work with Mary Rosinski on our Parks and Rec Board. These people that spend so many hours committing, volunteer time on our commissions, boards, and committees mean so much to me as a council member when I know that they have spent time, really focused time, looking at an issue, whether it's parks, whether it's our land use commission, and they really delve into, with our staff, and work out the kinks in it, the wrinkles, bring it back, bring back a better product. When it comes to me at council, when I know it's been well vetted, when it hasn't just bypassed committees and just gone, for example, as a special order of business, I know that I'm going to be make a more informed decision, and so that's so important. So I really praise the work of our all of our volunteers, our expert volunteers on our boards, committees, and commissions. So
I want to speak to the transparency. You know, a lot of politicians say beautiful things that feel good, but they don't really walk the talk. This woman actually walks the talk, and let me give you one example that I'm sure many of you don't know about. In terms of that Ryan Stadium. Now, some of us were for it, some were not for it. Actually, I was for the stadium, but I didn't like the shenanigans behind the scenes for it. And it was Alderperson Clare Kelly who found out that our own corporate city council, Nick Cummings at the time, went to a federal court to block Evanston out of any decisions being made. It was a 20-year decree, so they didn't tell anyone that they were going to do this. She found out about it, got down there to the court, and blocked it from happening. The judge threw it out. So yes, she deserves an applause for that. Had she not done that, I mean, we love Northwestern, but Northwestern would have been able to do whatever Northwestern wanted to do from here on out. And you talk about losing property and homes and things like that, it would have been out of control. And she was led the march on that. She was like, watch the case. And I watched the hearing. It was amazing.
I think that's a great example of transparency. I mean, if that hadn't been disclosed, it wasn't disclosed by our city government. It was because somebody in the 7th Ward provided me with a FOIA that they had received, where they saw embedded in it that our corporation council had gone to the federal court to try to undermine this committee, which is of great value to Evanston residents. I'm also very connected to Northwestern, by the way. I go all the way back to first graduating class of 5, my great-great-grandfather. And my son graduated from there, so I love Northwestern also, but this is a committee that serves the residents. This gives us a chance to engage with Northwestern, to express concerns, to work on improving community relations. We didn't want that undermined. So, the failure of transparency there, that committee would have been undermined. And so that's why transparency really does deliver a better product for residents. I think we saw that with the case of the lease. I think we all know about how there was a contract signed behind closed doors, and that whole process went awry because of a lack of process, a lack of transparency. And it doesn't mean we may not have gone in the same direction. The same with even the Ryan Field. Whether you're for or against it, my issue again was process and transparency. The more transparency, the better what we're going to get as a result. And so that is just so essential.
And I'm going to do one more question in there. So we were talking about affordable housing. In our last show, State Representative LaShawn K. Ford was at our last show. And one of his solutions to housing here in Evanston is to grandfather in longtime residents so that your property taxes don't go up. Right. What would you all agree with that? Is that something that can happen here in Evanston?
I think absolutely. I think we absolutely need to look at, and that's, when I talk about affordability, we have to all, and thank you for discussing this, it is expensive here. It's expensive to live here, and it's expensive to do business here. And we can't dismiss that. We have to understand that and accept that and deal with it and try to address it. And I think that's one way. I'm working with Commissioner Samantha Steele. In September, we're going to hold a town hall on affordability to look at just examples just like that. What can we do? There are many measures we can take. It's not just, we don't have to just leave this to the Wild West free market and just, I can see, density in itself does not bring affordability. I think this is what we heard from Gail Schechter. We really need policies in place, such as tax freezes, such as, affordability and perpetuity. There are many measures, there's zoning, all kinds of things that we can do to ensure affordability. So
we talk about, we all know that there's a very important election coming up. That's really been the focal point that everyone's been talking about the last couple of months. But there are additional elections that are coming up, and you will be on the ballot come April for your own race. And I'm often of the belief, we can be engaged on the national level. It's incredibly important to, obviously, we want a good president, we want good senators, governors, etc. Yeah, I agree with that. But I think we tend to forget about the local, right? And that there's so many aspects of local government that impact your everyday life. When is my trash going to get picked up? How high are my property taxes? Do my kids have affordable summer camp in the summer so I don't have to go get a babysitter while they don't have school, right? All of these pieces are about local. What is at stake in this upcoming local election here in Evanston?
Again, I would go back to those three main areas that are so important. We want people who are open and willing to engage and participate with our community and be grateful for their participation. All of that really does help bring us to a higher level in terms of understanding what we can do in terms of providing affordable housing, in terms of creating a more affordable Evanston. What we don't want is, we want a government that understands that the government's business is everybody's business, right? That's really key. And so I think that's what we really want to look out for in the folks who are coming forward, that they really believe that our business is your business, and we want you at the table. I think that's just really essential. And also for our employees. We have so many fabulous employees in Evanston. I want to see them feeling freer to participate and engage. I don't want to see our employees feeling inhibited. We have brilliant, creative employees with so much to offer who love Evanston. And we want to remove those barriers so that we can also engage freely and that they can participate, just like our residents and our boards, committees, and commissioners. I think we really need to look for that. I think those are the elements that really bring us to a higher level, not only for us locally, but I believe and I know Evanston has in the past made changes here that have affected, state and national policy.
Yeah, as a resident of Elmwood Park, so I'm a visitor here. For the last 16 years, I've been a member of Post 42, American Legion. I've been honored to have been invited on this panel, thanks to Malika. And there are a number of different things that I can compare to with Chicago politics and my Elmwood Park politics and Evanston politics. And transparency, I would agree, that's one of the biggest issues, because a lot of times when you look at a candidate, they might tell you what they would like to do as opposed to what's their track record say. And that's the part of the transparency that I can associate with personally.
Process. People question, have we had a more transparent process? Whether I didn't necessarily object to the stadium, but a more transparent process, what would we have ended up with as residents and our town-down relationship too? It would have been stronger. So, it's really so key.
Okay, we're gonna let you go. Do you have any questions, Al?
Malika, you had brought up the Wesley buildings, and I think Claire, for all you've done to really champion them. Speaking of transparency and responsiveness, we've been asking for the city council to hold a public hearing as to why there have not been inspections, why has it got to this position. How how's that going?
Yeah, thank you. I think it hasn't gone too much further, but I agree. So I have been, insisting on getting, details about this, and I've really been hitting a wall at the city. And that's another example with transparency. This is, these three buildings represent what we would call naturally occurring affordable housing. This is key. It costs so much less to restore and rehab naturally occurring affordable housing in a neighborhood, in a community, than to tear down and build new, affordable housing. And so, this is what we need to do. But we didn't get even to that opportunity to discuss this because so much was off the table and behind closed doors. And so I still hope we can continue, and thank you also, Gail, for your work on that. I hope we can continue this discussion. I hope we can, in the end, restore these buildings and create affordable housing where it exists right now in the community, in the neighborhood. So how is it going? Well, I hope that we will have another hearing at the City Council. I hope we will all discuss this publicly and talk about ways to have a much better, have a good outcome in the end. I feel terrible. It's devastating what those residents faced when they were delivered on February 13th, a letter out of the blue saying they had to vacate their homes, low-income seniors. It was heart-wrenching, and it still is heart-wrenching. Their lives were just turned upside down. So I still hope, and I'm still working on to try to achieve a good outcome.
More questions? Any questions?
Oh, go ahead. Keep bringing the heat.
Don't stop. And you keep bringing the heat on the dais. Have you all watched our council meeting? Have you watched our in action? Woo! It's fire. Yes. Thank you